Do you want to see my new 4K haul? My new 4K purchase?
You have to show the haul, otherwise it doesn't count.
That's true. I feel like every 4K DVD Blu-ray site is doing sales right now. So Arrow Video is doing one. So I got Pulse.
Ooh.
Only one I've never seen out of the group that I bought, but I've been curious about it. Pulse Blu-ray. And then I got a bunch of 4Ks of movies from the 90s that I love, like Demolition Man.
I fucking love that movie.
And then Ken recently mentioned that he watched Wild Things and liked it, and I was like, yeah, I love Wild Things. So I got Wild Things.
I don't know if I saw it after seeing it in the theater, so I'd really like to watch it again sometime.
Gotta see all that dong.
Yeah.
And then one of the greatest movies ever, I think.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's been on my list. I've been kind of bugging Megan about that lately. I was like, I think she'd like it, and I've just been kind of itching to watch it.
Yeah, I told Annie we gotta watch it too. Welcome back to Never Did It. For the last time in season 1, I'm Brad Garoon. I'm here with Jake Ziegler. On Never Did It, we look back at over a century of movie history in an effort to fill in some of our own movie blind spots. I'm a little geeked up because it is our season 1 finale. So we're doing a double episode. Not the first time we've done this, but the first time we've done this without the movie Big Fat Liar.
Yes.
All the movies are good to great, depending on which one of us you ask. I don't know if this has ever happened before where we both really, really, really like the movies that we recommended and didn't so much like the movies that were recommended at us, which is kind of what I thought the spirit of the show would be when we started, and at least it is for the season finale.
That's what I was looking back on too when I looked at the list. We're gonna have it come later on where we rank each other's choices for each other over the season. So when I was looking at the list, we rated this about the same, we rated this about the same. I mean, usually within like half a star or 1 star, kind of one way or the other. There's only the number that are like more than 2 stars apart you could count on one hand, I'm sure.
Look, it's not a surprise. We're close friends for like over 20 years now, and you're gonna have similar taste or you're gonna hate each other. But I do think that this episode, like what we're about to talk about, gets at how our tastes differ a little bit, because I was looking at these movies and I was like, yeah, that's a real Jake movie. That's a real Jake movie. This is a real Brad movie. This is a real Brad movie. I promised myself I would never refer to myself in the third person after having dinner with someone who does that a lot. So I hate that I just did that.
You know, in some cases, it's not the worst thing. It's if you're overly reliant on it or do it consistently, then it's obnoxious. But in certain contexts, you can do it.
I agree. Which movie do you want to talk about first?
Well, let's start with probably the one I'm most anxious to talk about, and it's a little bit of a downer. We want to talk about Red Rooms first?
Sure.
Yeah. Right, so tell me why you picked it for me.
So first, Red Rooms, very first and foremost, on a very technical level, gets at another disagreement that you and I have, which is, when do movies count? Do they count the year that they came out in their home country, or do they count the year they came out in the United States? I usually lean towards home country, although for more recent movies, I've started to come around to your way of thinking, and that's what happened with Red Rooms. But that's mostly because it's a question of when can I actually go first see it in the theater versus like, I don't care when it came out in the 70s, especially because like early foreign films didn't come out. Some of them didn't come out in the States until like decades later, but you're usually pretty flexible about that. Red Rooms came out in Canada. It's a French-Canadian movie that came out in Canada in 2023, but us Yanks didn't know about it until 2024. I recommended it because when I watched it, I was really blown back by it. And I thought this is the one that I thought you would really like. I wasn't sure about the next one we're covering, but I really thought you'd like Red Rooms. And I was happy to see that you liked at least some of it. So this is a psychological thriller in the mold of Silence of the Lambs, in that it's about a woman dealing with a serial killer. It's about a woman who becomes obsessed with the trial of a serial killer who kills young blonde girls in one of these red rooms that you can find online on the dark web. And she's a real dark web addict. Like, she's a model, and she's beautiful and has everything you would think. But at the same time, she's also an online poker player, and that's how she makes a lot of money. And she visits these dark web chat rooms and red rooms because she's obsessed with this killer, to the point that she visits the trial. And if you've seen Anatomy of a Fall, you know that places that have the French system of law are just very different. Are there American legal thrillers about crimes that happen in Louisiana?
Oh, yeah, there's got to be a bunch. I think A Time to Kill, I want to say the Grisham adaptation, I want to say that was Louisiana. But yeah, there's got to be, one of those, old sweaty lawyers. It's got to have taken place in Louisiana. So I'm guessing A Time to Kill, but I'm not positive. But yes.
So Louisiana, like Montreal, I think, leans more towards that French model of courtroom procedure. It's so stylized in Red Rooms. So it's a starkly white room. The accused is in a glass box. He's terrifying. The movie is centered around these videos that he allegedly recorded of himself dismembering these girls in these red rooms, and how these two women, the model who we talked about, and this sort of drifter homeless woman who's also obsessed with this killer and is like in love with him, how they relate to each other and their relationship, and then how one of them takes things really far when it comes to her relationship to the case. I'm going to do my best to not spoil as much of this movie as possible. I loved it. You said you loved parts of it. Tell me about the parts you loved and the parts you didn't love so much.
I loved so much of it, and it's going to be a little bit hard to talk about the parts I didn't like without, spoiling certain things. So yeah, we'll kind of tread lightly here, or maybe we might have to issue a spoiler warning at some point. But I loved all the courtroom stuff. I thought that was really effective. The way the two lawyers played it, I thought having that guy sitting there in the box, was so unnerving. Just having him sit there the whole time, and of course not contributing anything, not saying anything, but just sitting there. So it's really interesting to see how his lawyer plays it, and then how the prosecution plays it, and just thinking about how these jurors are going to have to watch the videos in full. One of them, I think they said, was 28 minutes, another one was 31 minutes, and they had to make sure that the people were going to have the stomach for it, which right away then I started thinking, like, would I have the stomach for that? I'm like, I don't think I would. I would probably have to be a conscientious objector on that. I don't think I could do that. So it's a movie that brings up some questions in yourself early on, which I always think is really cool. I love the performances. I think both of the women are fantastic. They're so good. Their relationship together is interesting. The way that the drifter, like I said, the young woman who comes in from like a small town, and she doesn't have any money, but she's just so devoted to this guy and is so convinced that he's innocent. Everything about her is hard on the sleeve. She's right out there. She's not afraid. So she is. But then the lead, like the other woman, where she's so reserved, barely makes facial expressions. Doesn't really say much of anything when she says things, and it's just such a cool dichotomy between the two characters. I will say the parts that left me feeling let down or disappointed was just kind of the resolutions of certain plot points where it didn't just quite gel for me, and it's hard for me to explain why. I even said in my Letterboxd review, like, the more I think about this movie, the more I might like it, because I was so into it for a majority of it, and then there's a certain aspects of the resolutions of it that just left me feeling very underwhelmed.
A couple of housekeeping things, because this is sort of coming up now. So this movie is directed by Pascal Plante. The two women that we're talking about, these two stars, are Juliette Garipi. Let's see if I can learn how to pronounce that right. Nope, they didn't give me any clues. So sorry if I mispronounced it. That's the main model stoic woman. And then Laurie Babin, or it might be Laurie Babin. I don't know. Again, sorry for my pronunciation. I actually nominated her for a Niddy Award. Thought she was so great. And I honestly, they both deserve it. It was just easier to fit Babin into my ballot than it was to fit Garipi. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong, into lead. Okay, so should we issue a spoiler alert now so we can... I don't want to talk about it, but I agree with you. There's some stuff you kind of have to talk about. Because there's two big plot points at the end, and I'm curious how you felt about each of them. So big spoiler alert here. Fast forward now. We're talking about it now. What did you think of the online poker scene? Was that something that you got hung up on? Because I thought I was like so hooked on this thing that I don't know anything about. I was like, what's going to happen?
When she wins enough money to get the third video, I thought that was fantastic. Yeah, I was so tense during that whole thing. And I was like, I have no clue what she's doing or how any of this stuff works. But I thought that was, really, really cool. That was a great scene.
And then the thing that I think might be a little more divisive is, what did you think about her dressing up like the victim and showing up in court?
It kind of felt like it felt a little bit out of nowhere for me, because she seemed so calculated with everything that she had done before that. And this was such a fantastical pick-me sort of attitude thing that she hadn't really displayed before. And I wasn't really sure like what the purpose of it would be for her either, to provoke the killer. I mean, that didn't seem like that was anything she was interested in, or to get a rise out of, the parents. That didn't seem like anything that she was interested in either. So I will say one of the things the movie does really well is it builds up to all the scenes really well. So even though I didn't quite understand what she was doing in this scene, once you kind of see her, put the contacts in, and then she, does she kind of does it real slowly. That stuff's all really cool. This is like a really, really well-made, well-crafted movie that I'm just not sure added up to as much as I wanted it to. But there's no denying that there's like some really, really cool scenes in the movie, like the poker scene, like that scene. I liked all of that.
So I think... I agree with what you said in your Letterboxd review. I think you will absolutely start to think of this movie as like a 4.5 star movie down the line, because I've had a lot of time to think about the movie, and I didn't really know what that was, but I was still like, wow, that is crazy what she's doing. And I've come to think of it as, so she's already thrown her life away. Her modeling career is over. Her other forms of income are like pretty stretched. And she's also kind of a little bit burned this black market thing she's doing, this dark web. And I started thinking, like, so her character's name is Kellyanne and the other girl's name is Clementine. And it's to show how Clementine, who was so devoted to this guy, the second that she saw the video, she bailed and went home and became a normal person again, one assumes. And Kellyanne, who seems skeptical and unknowable, is now going full hog into seeing where her devotion will take her. And so I think what's cool about the scene of her going to the jail is you can take it one of two ways. And I'm sure the filmmaker will never tell you which is right. I mean, you can take it way more than one of two ways, but I think of two ways. One is she's testing. I think she is trying to provoke the killer, and she does. Like, she gets him to wave at her.
That's so creepy. Yeah. Like, I think I like actually got like goosebumps at that. Where I was just like, whoa, like it. Yeah, that was so cool. Like so well shot.
So I think she did that so that either the jury would see that he was reacting to her dressed in that way, or that she could know for herself what kind of man this is, because what she does next is leave no doubt that he's the killer. And so I just think it's really cool that you could go in those directions. I'm gonna ask you again on a future episode. We'll come back and see, like, what do you think?
And I'd like to take to give it another watch in a little bit. I don't think I'm gonna watch it with my wife. I don't think she would like it.
Yeah,
that might be a tough one for her. And then the only other problem I had with the movie was, like I said, when as long as we're still in spoiler territory here, like once Clementine see those videos and just like kind of leaves and goes home, that also felt underwhelming to me as like the end of their relationship. That there was nothing, that it, like she was just there for a little bit and then she was gone. It just felt like there was no kind of resolution to that, and that's by design, I'm sure. And again, that might be something that I think about later on, but just in the moment, I don't know. I think I wanted more from that, especially from Clementine after going through something so traumatic. But I guess her response is probably the right one.
Yeah, I think it's just characteristic of her. She left her house, she left her home, and then she's leaving her new situation. I also liked it because it showed that she's just she's flighty in a lot of ways. Like, she's so devoted, and then it made her, one, lose her faith in this killer, and it made her scared of Kellyanne. And because that happens before Kellyanne does the stunt in court, it leaves you as the viewer wondering, like, how far is this thing in court going to go? Like, if Clementine is afraid of her, what's going to happen now? I also just I love that relationship from start to finish, that they met outside and they hang out together in this homeless place. And Kellyanne's actually very wealthy, and she lives in this like Patrick Bateman sterile apartment. Man, it's such a cool looking movie too. Yeah, I can't wait to talk to you about it again in a few months.
Yeah. We'll do. It'll be our first ever never did it redo,
yeah,
or whatever. I don't know, rehash. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
For sure. We can find our own stupid term for it. Let's pivot to one of your movies. Let's stay in the legal thriller courtroom mode. Tell me why you recommended Juror number 2 for me.
Because I loved it. Like, and you said this is such a Jake movie. It totally is. I just really, really liked this movie. And we talked about it actually quite a bit before it came out, because it was so weird, the release strategy or lack of release strategy that the movie had, where Warner had this movie that by all accounts was, pretty good and pretty well liked, and had, Clint Eastwood directing, and not Tom Cruise level stars, but enough like recognizable names. You got your J.K. Simmons and Nicholas Hoult and Toni Collette, good solid cast of people. It's like, so people always say like, oh, they don't make movies for adults anymore. It's all comic books and franchises and cartoons. So like, here was a movie that would appeal to the adult demographic, and it just got completely buried. But I thought there was an interesting aspect to it too. And like I said, I thought you would like it. I think it's a good legal thriller. Got some good performances, and thought we could have a good discussion.
Tell us what it's about.
It's about a guy, and we're gonna let's just issue a spoiler warning here too, because there's some interesting ways that the movie kind of introduces what might be considered spoilers, I guess.
I think that the main plot of the movie, yeah, I mean, it's in the trailer, right? So the plot of the movie is the guy's on the jury and realizes he may have committed the crime that he's on the jury for.
Yeah, which is a pretty cool, and what's cool about the movie is that they reveal that kind of right away. Or I don't watch the trailers, so this is maybe where I'm at a disadvantage in the case, but so I didn't know kind of how they were presenting the movie in the trailers. Also, I didn't think they showed that many trailers because the movie wasn't opening anywhere. So yeah, that's kind of the crux of the movie, is that he's this juror. He is juror number 2, so it's not just a clever name. And he, there was a girl who died one night, had been arguing with her boyfriend in a bar, left the bar, was walking away, and, was found kind of dead the next morning at the bottom of a steep hill. The driver, he realizes, he had thought he had hit a deer that night, but when he hears the case, he understands like, oh no, I was there that night in that location. He goes, I probably hit her with my car. This guy's innocent, but he can't kind of reveal that to anyone. So I think it's a really cool setup for a movie, and brings up some interesting questions, kind of like Red Rooms did, where I started thinking about certain things like, gosh, what would I do in this extremely unlikely situation?
I agree. Super cool concept for a movie. Great cast. J.K. Simmons is awesome. Nick Holt is awesome. Toni Collette is awesome. And I think an underappreciated part of this movie is Chris Messina, the attorney for the accused, is
He's very
awesome.
good. Yeah, I really liked him.
This movie is tough for me to talk about for two reasons. One, I talked about on my Letterboxd review, and one, I realized when I was thinking about what I wanted to say about it today. First, it's bad for me as a never did it movie, because I know that when we finish talking about this, I'm going to like the movie less. But it does bring up a cool question that I have for you, and I think we've maybe touched on this before. So Eastwood often doesn't use professional actors. These are all professional actors.
Very much so, yeah.
He's also notorious for not doing a lot of takes.
Mm-hmm.
And just he hires who he wants, and it is what it is. Mm-hmm. And I think in most of the movie that works out really well, because he's got real pros in his top billed cast. Now, thankfully, the jury scenes, the deliberation scenes, they don't take up a ton of the movie. I thought they were going to take up more. Mm-hmm. And so when they started, and most of the jury is played by people who couldn't act their way out of a paper bag, I was like, oh no, I'm going to hate this. Mm-hmm. And there's a few folks in there who are all right, especially Cedric Yarbrough, who I loved on Reno 911.
So funny, yeah.
He was good. And he's the person who gets the most screen time of all the jurors, except for J.K. Simmons, who does a good job, but is unfortunately dispatched with kind of early. But everyone else on that jury, I felt like they were doing community theater. And I thought about 12 Angry Men, of course.
Of course, very obvious parallels here.
In 12 Angry Men, there's a lot of very emotive acting. And, not every line in 12 Angry Men is a keeper. You have to get from A to B. But there's a line pretty early on in the jury deliberation when one of the jurors, Rebecca Kuhn, she doesn't even have a name I like. Ugh.
Yeah, that's a rough one to say.
At one point, Rebecca Kuhn, when talking about the woman who's killed, who's played by Clint Eastwood's daughter, who I think she was the only good part of Queen of the Ring, frankly.
Yep, accurate.
Playing Mae Young, who she actually kind of looks like.
Yep.
When she says, oh, she was out walking in heels at night in the rain. Kids these days. I was like, this is a real line in a movie in 2024. Give me a break. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it went by like that. But I started wondering, like, why does that bother me so much in this? But it didn't. But like when lines like that came up in A Matter of Life and Death, they don't bother me. When they came up in The Best Years of Our Lives, they don't bother me. Just to talk about a few movies that we've talked about recently that I loved. And and that stuff didn't bother me. It really bothers me when it happens now. Where do we draw that line, and why does it bother? Like, why do we just take it as a given back then? Is it because it's inescapable in these old movies, and now we have a more naturalistic way of acting more and more and more so as time goes on? But why can't I just allow for that?
I don't know, because I was just going to say, I definitely allow for that. I mean, you're absolutely right about the older movies. I mean, that's just the style, and that's just the way that the movies were made and movies were produced at the time. And now there's just so many more types of things that movies do. And like when I see a movie like this, I'm like, yeah, I agree. None of those actors, other than the names, are particularly great. Like the stoner kid also is not so good, but
he's just out of place. And a lot of it just felt like the Japanese woman.
Mm-hmm.
In real life, you will meet people who have strong accents, but you will not meet people who have strong accents and are bad actors. Yeah. Like that's a double whammy.
But it doesn't bother me in stuff like this, as long as like the main parts of the movie, like the big stars and the main plot points, are moving in to a place that like I'm interested in, and like the main actors are doing it. I honestly, I just kind of forgive that stuff. It just rolls right off.
Sure. Here's my other problem. And I want to say this is a good movie that I just had problems with. I'm not going to say like this is a bad movie, but I think it does have one especially fatal flaw. And it is that Cedric Yarbrough is Nicholas Holt's, I guess, nemesis, his anti on the jury. Holt feels guilty, wants to get this guy acquitted. He doesn't know for sure if he killed this girl, but he knows for sure that this guy didn't kill this girl. So he wants to get him acquitted so he doesn't get the death penalty, which is also very old school. Like in every old movie, anyone on trial goes to the chair. Now you're like, well, the death penalty is not as common now.
Yeah.
You won't get the chair.
Well, and we should mention, too, that part of the reason that he wants to get this guy acquitted so bad and why he doesn't want to be investigated himself is because he's a former alcoholic, and he was leaving a bar that night where he says he didn't drink. And for the movie, I don't see any reason to doubt that, the way the movie presents it. So, if it had ever been found out that he was leaving a bar that night, he would certainly get in so much more trouble than he would before because of his past history with drunk driving and all of that. So there's a little added layer to it, too.
Right, which is provided to him by Kiefer Sutherland, who we didn't mention is in this movie and is also very good.
Yeah, it was nice to see him again. Like, you just don't see him too much, and I feel like he has some bad opinions in real life. And yeah, it was cool. It was cool to see him as an show up again.
Depending on what those opinions are, people should be allowed to act. I mean, give me a break.
Of course, yeah. Unless people don't like you.
Well, if he's a bad person and he's tough to work with, that's a different story.
If you're a dick like James Woods, he really thinks it's his views. It's like, no, it's you. It's just you.
Yeah, it's obviously him because he's a great actor. There's
fantastic. He's so good.
Other people with vile opinions get work. It's got to be him.
Of course it is.
And there's no reason to think that he would be investigated. He wants to confess, but knows that if he does, it's over for him.
And he's got a wife who's having a baby.
Right.
He has, he wants to be there for. So yeah, there's a lot of little things going on.
Major spoilers here. Now we're going to talk spoilers. So he's got this foe on the jury who wants to convict the accused, and they're building to this confrontation between them during like a jury field trip to see some evidence. But the confrontation can't amount to anything because they're not actually opposed to each other, because this guy has no idea at all that Nicholas Hoult could have been part of it. But we as viewers of the movie are like, oh no, is he going to figure it out? He doesn't want to figure it out. It's not what he's about. So when they finally like come together and he's like, I'll never quit. I'll get this guy convicted no matter what. You're like, who cares? That's not what the movie's about. So that I was like, oh, you're building this big thing and that doesn't do it for me. What I did like was that Toni Collette, her character, I liked her arc, because just like Cedric Yarborough's like, I'll never figure this. He's not trying to figure it out. He has no clue. I like that anything was going to give us a question of what is going to happen to Nicholas Hoult, which gave us this great final shot, up there with Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, which is my favorite final shot of any movie ever. Have you seen the original Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3?
I haven't seen either Taking, or did I see the, no, I might have seen the new one, but I definitely haven't seen the old one. I'd like to.
Okay, so we'll get that on a Never Did It sometime in the future. I think these are two of the best final shots in any movie. So I liked her bit where, there's no real reason why she should have been connecting these dots at all, but through his own machinations, Nick Hoult may have screwed himself. It depends. They have a confrontation near the end of the movie where it's like, who knows what's going to happen? And it ends with who knows what's going to happen, which I like. But I don't like that to get there, we have these like fake tense moments that can't lead to anything because these people aren't fighting the same fight. So that's where I'm at on this movie.
Yeah. I liked some of the implications of the discussions I had in the courtroom, like the people, when Nicholas Hoult again is trying to not prove that this guy's innocent, but at least be like, hey, we should at least talk about this. This is a guy's life, and I like that they talked about that quite a bit. Like, hey, this is not, this is a big deal. Like, we're gonna be sending this guy away for life. Let's actually discuss it. Oh, Leslie Bibb is in this movie too. She plays the foreperson of the jury. People probably know her from The White Lotus now at this point.
Also, Sam Rockwell's wife.
And they're so cute. Every picture you see them together, they just look so happy and stuff. I hope that that's real. Anyway, but so I like that they paid attention to that. And then there's another discussion that I really liked where one guy's maybe starting to come around to maybe this guy is not guilty. He was like, well, but then who did it? And Nicholas Holt's like, well, that's not our job, to figure out who did it. It's just our job to decide beyond a reasonable doubt, sort of thing. So I thought there was kind of like cool little legal tidbits in there. I mean, I don't know how accurate any of this stuff is or how it would go, but just for the movie and the story, I really liked how they did some of that.
I don't need it to be accurate. No. That's not at all what I'm looking for in a movie. What I needed a little was for it to be consistent. So Nicholas Holt's character, he's very good at delivering what he's given, but I feel like what he's given in some regard wasn't the best. The movie's about his guilt, but aside from him like doing this, sadly, and staring at the camera with tears in his eyes, I was like, well, how is he expressing his guilt? Like when he talks to Kiefer Sutherland, there's this great mechanism for him to talk about how guilty he feels about all this. But really, he just talks about like how he's going to get away with not implicating himself and helping this guy. And they a little bit made up for it with this scene with his wife at the end, but even that was kind of I don't know, to me this is lesser Eastwood.
I think it's greater Eastwood. I'd have it higher, not like at the top, but in his certainly in his upper half,
in his upper echelon.
Absolutely.
Cool. Let's keep the ball rolling. We're going to go in a really different direction now. So I recommended for you Hundreds of Beavers, which I wasn't sure you were going to like because this is a weird one. This is a movie made by the comedic duo of Mike Cheslick, who directed this one, and Ryland Brixton Cole-Tews, who directed the first feature that these two made together called Lake Michigan Monster, and is like is the star of Hundreds of Beavers, and this is a pseudo silent film. It's made in the style of The Gold Rush, but has some like merp merp, oh, mush mush, like that kind of stuff, or ha ha.
A lot of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, basically video game sounds. Like since my birthday, Annie got me a Nintendo Switch, and I've been playing a lot of Breath of the Wild. And sometimes they'll come in and be like, why don't people talk? Why is it just, ha-ha, Hey, oh. I'm like, that's video game sounds. And that's really what's going on in Hundreds of Beavers. It's in black and white, and it's about a Applejack salesman who gets too drunk and destroys his own business, and then has to build himself back up from nothing to win the hand of the fur trader's daughter. So I see you laughing, like you clearly like the premise.
Yeah, oh, I do.
I'll just say, like, this is a video game. Video game movies like the Mario Brothers movies or the Sonic movies or Minecraft, they're based on video games, but these are not video game movies. This is a video game movie. Hundreds of Beavers is a video game movie. Edge of Tomorrow is a video game movie. Movies that are about having everything, losing it all, and like building up your material to have it all again. That's how a video game is structured.
Win the princess.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie is structured like a video game by design. In fact, the entire second act, the main character is like rewriting a trap line that a much more experienced character had given him. And that was designed like a video game to help the audience understand what was happening and the geography of this fantastical world they made, which is in the very cold Canadian Wisconsin wilderness.
Canadian Wisconsin.
Well, it's either. I don't know. Yeah. One of them.
One of those two. It couldn't be anywhere else.
Lake Michigan Monster takes place in Wisconsin, so I just assume this does also. So I like this movie, and I liked it way more when I watched it the second time, where I started to think, like, I think these guys are like maybe geniuses, especially because today I also watched Lake Michigan Monster, and there's just a giant leap from what they did in the first one to what they did in the second one. Mm-hmm. You had a different opinion about this movie. Tell me about it.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it. I liked a lot about it. It's kind of how I felt about, remember when we were talking about Grand Theft Hamlet and how I compared it to, like, you know, a Blair Witch Project, where it was like, what a neat idea. I love these guys. I'm so glad that they made it. I just didn't need it for an hour and 48 minutes, I think was kind of my thing. I thought a lot of it kind of dragged in the early going. After the initial setup, which I laughed a lot during that initial song, I thought that was really funny. But then I thought it kind of dragged for a little while and dragged for a little while. And a lot of the bits I thought were kind of repeated. Like he falls through a hole and comes up again, like, you know, 10 or 12 times. I was like, well, I'm not really into that.
A little bit of Andre the Giant. He's learning.
He's learning. Yeah, he's learning. So there was some of this thought it dragged a little, but then when it got back to the end again, when he goes into the, like, the, you know, the big final battle. I mean, I was rolling with that. So yeah, I did really enjoy the movie. It's mostly like a length thing, you know, with me. Like I thought, you know, if this movie was even closer to like an hour, you know, like 60, 70 minutes or somewhere thereabouts, I probably would have liked it even more. But yeah, this is a really cool movie. And it's so neat to see something so different and to have it just be so easily accessible. You know, this is streaming on like 5 different platforms. I did enjoy it. I think it's a lot of fun.
I had the same feeling as you in the beginning. It does take a long time, not even necessarily to get started, because like you said, it starts with this. I had a hard time, I'm like, where are we? He just goes right, it's like, this is an Applejack, and he's doing this crazy, he's just getting wasted, and then everything explodes. And then you immediately get dropped into his rebuilding. And for the first, I'd say 10 minutes of that, I was having a hard time locking in. And then I talked to my neighbor about this last night, and he's right. Once the gag logic kicks in and you get into a groove, and actually for me, it was the repetition and seeing him get a little bit farther each time. That was when I locked in. So for me, the first act was tough. The second act I thought was the greatest. I just kept thinking, like, how will these gags culminate? And I actually didn't like the third act as much. Once he goes into the spaceship thing, I was like, come on. We've lost the structure, and now it's an action movie. So your mileage may vary on which parts you like, and maybe you like, oh, there's a ton of 5-star reviews for this movie.
The movie is well loved. And I'll preface this by saying, too, is that I thought I was going to love it. I was kind of prepped to, like, really love it. I was excited to watch it, and I more just liked it and appreciated it. When
you mentioned that maybe it should have been shorter, I don't want it to be shorter, and I say that now, having watched Lake Michigan Monster, which I think is 75 minutes and bad. It's like, that's a bad movie. It's got dialogue, which is bad. Although Twos has an interesting voice, and he's basically playing the same character. Something so cool. Okay, I just have to talk about when you get the Blu-ray, there's a way to watch this movie where it's cut into 4 quadrants. And the upper left-hand quadrant is how you watch the movie traditionally. The upper right-hand quadrant is the shots in color as they're being filmed. So there's stuff missing in the background. In the lower right-hand corner are like props that might be in the final shot that don't make it into the original. They're not like in camera originally, but they are shot in camera. A lot of this movie is done in camera, although a ton of it is done in Adobe After Effects. Interesting statistic. The original Jurassic Park, I think, had 60 special effects shots. The original Jurassic Park, a masterful CGI movie. Hundreds of Beavers, which is a silly experiment, has 1,500 special effects shots. And then the lower left-hand corner is the storyboard. It's a very cool way to watch it. And the first thing you notice is that Twos doesn't have eyebrows that will show up in black and white. So he has painted on eyebrows, which I didn't know until I watched it in color. But in Lake Michigan Monster, they make a joke out of the fact that he has to color his eyebrows because that movie's also in black and white. But that movie has a script, like a real script. The dialogue is bad and the acting is bad. In this, the acting can be very cartoony, and you have to hear a word. So, or many words. Aha! It reminded me, and obviously it's pulling so much from the Gold Rush, especially like doing it all for the lady, that I'm glad you at least appreciated it. Because there was always the chance you'd hate it. There are some movies like this that you really hate. Like this could have been a Napoleon Dynamite. Because that's a pretty experimental movie for the time that it came out.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Actually, I loved it at the time, and then over time, not so much.
Didn't take that much time. I think by the time we, like 2 or 3 years later, you were like, fuck this.
Yeah. I don't remember the exact moment, but I definitely know when I first showed it to my daughter for the first time, I'm like, oh my God, if I wasn't watching this with her, I'd turn it off.
Comedies are tough and they don't always age well. This one, I'm glad you appreciated it. And I agree with what you like about it. I just think there's more than that. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then we're going to have to take the mood down a little bit for our last movie. Tell us all about it.
I'm Still Here. This one was a movie that kind of a little bit came out of nowhere to get a Best Picture nomination last year. And I think other than The Substance, I feel like this was the only one that you hadn't seen. And I thought it was really good. And I thought that, it's a political story. I thought that aspect would be interesting to you. And I thought the performance, the lead performance by Fernando Torres, I thought was so good and one of the best in any movie last year. So I thought there was some good stuff there. So the basic plot outline: Fernando Torres is the lead. She's married to a politician named Rubens Paiva, and this is based on a true story also, by the way. So she's married to him. He was a former congressman who had to be exiled, and then he has come back and is not involved in politics anymore, but he just kind of he has his family, and he does, well, I should say he's not officially involved in politics because he still does work for the resistance on the side, because Brazil is under dictatorship at this time. So he's secretly working for the resistance. And as you know, when that happens in those kind of movies, one day he comes and they take him away and they're just going to ask him a few questions and he'll be right back. But you kind of get the feeling that that's definitely not going to be the case. And the movie just kind of follows the family drama from there. And I thought it was really interesting. Like I said, well acted, and some just great tense scenes in it, and just shot really well. And this one, I wasn't super surprised what Juror number 2 is. Like, I'm gonna like Juror number 2 more than Brad, but I still want him to see it. This one I thought you would like more than you did.
I mean, I liked it, don't get me wrong, and I liked it more than Juror number 2 by quite a bit. I think there's some real achievements in this movie. Juror number 2 is kind of disposable. I don't think anyone would dispute that. It's like a late stage Clint Eastwood legal drama. I think that people will still be talking about I'm Still Here after some time has passed. Now, I've never seen another Walter Salles movie before. I've never seen Central Station. Did you watch it? Did you end up watching it recently, or was it just too weirdly priced for you?
No, it was weirdly priced. Like, you can buy it in one place online at $16.09 on Amazon, I think, for a digital copy of it. And that's the only place it exists. But I saw it a long time ago, actually. I saw it well before I'm Still Here. I mean, because it was an Oscar nominee back in 1998 when it came out. It was up for the best foreign film, and then Fernanda Montenegro was nominated for Best Actress for that film as well. And fun fact, as I like to share my fun facts about the Oscars, Fernanda Montenegro and Fernando Torres are the only two actresses from Brazil to ever be nominated for Best Actress, and it's a mother-daughter, and they both did it in a film directed by Walter Salles. So which I think that's pretty cool.
And they play the same character in this movie.
Yes, they do, and I thought that was a really nice touch too. When they get to the end, when she's older, and and her mom plays her, I thought that was really cool.
I'm gonna do a slight kind of like not really pseudo spoiler for the show Andor. Not a plot spoiler, but a casting spoiler. Alexander Skarsgård is a major character on that show, and there is a episode in season 2 where they digitally de-age his face. And granted, digital de-aging has come a long way since Tron Legacy, which I watched recently, where Jeff Bridges looks like a piece of silly putty on the screen. So it looks better than that, but it still looks like he has silly putty on his face. And Alexander Skarsgård is like right there. And it's easier to put old age makeup on someone than it is to digitally de-age someone. So I was a little frustrated with that. Very cool that they did that for this movie. Fernanda Torres plays Eunice Paiva in this movie has 3 different timelines. In the original timeline, in her older timeline, and then when she's much older, she's played by her mother, Montenegro. Both of them are terrific. It was so great that I was like, wait, did they get the real woman to play the old version? She can't still be alive.
Right.
And she's not. But they do look quite a bit alike. And it should be said that Selton Mello, who plays Rubens Paiva, they are the same face.
When they showed those pictures at the end, that's what I said. I was like, oh my God, like they could not have found a better guy to play him.
And they didn't have to find. He's like one of the most famous actors in Brazil. That's crazy.
That's a freebie.
He's great. She's great. There's not a bad performance in the bunch. You said it looks great. It does. Annie came in while I was watching it and she was like, I don't think I'm going to stick around. But it was the dancing scene that I was, first off, that song, Take Me Back to POE. We played that at our wedding. I love Bossa Nova. So the soundtrack for the movie, I was feeling it. That scene where they all danced to Take Me Back to POE is amazing. And she sat down, and just because it looked so good on our 4K TV, she kept watching for like a half hour. Lots to be said for that. She never walks in, sees it for a second, and then stays. That never happens. It's very tense. The scene where Eunice is being interrogated the first time. Well, I guess the only time she's interrogated. So scary. And then everything of her being held. I mean, I didn't know the story, so I had no idea where that was going.
No, yeah, I didn't either. I should say that I knew nothing about the story before I saw it.
My issue with this is your issue with Hundreds of Beavers. This felt long at 2.5 hours.
About 2 hours 15. Yeah, a little over 2.
And I think where it felt long for me was in the space between Ruben's disappearing and Eunice finding out what happened to Rubens. There's just like a lot of that. And it felt like a lot of that time was spent of them like thinking, well, what are we going to do? And then that all ends up being futile. And there's something to be said for that. Like it gives you this sense of hope and then this sense of despair later, which is great. And I totally understand why someone would look at this movie and be like, that's 5 stars. I wouldn't argue it. It just didn't get in my guts because of that. And then the story of the older kids just wasn't that compelling to me. Like the kids in the older timelines, the real people did so much work after this. I mean, the son, Rubens Paiva's son, wrote this memoir that the movie is based on. So, he's portrayed very triumphantly, especially because he was in an accident later in his life. And so later on in the movie, he's, shown to be in a wheelchair with very limited use of his arms even. So he's shown very triumphantly, I don't know, in a way that sort of took away from like all the trauma that this brutal military dictatorship did to this family as an example of what they did to the country. At the same time, right now I'm watching this show on Netflix called The Eternaut, which is a sci-fi show, but it's very much an allegory for the Argentinian military dictatorship that was such a big part of their history in the 20th century. And sometimes I wonder, like, maybe these stories are better told not so close to what happened, but with a little bit of dramatic or even complete dramatic distance. When you're telling the story of a real family, you have to be, I think, out of sensitivity, pretty honest about what happened. And that's not always the most dramatic. And so that's how I got to my rating, but I could be convinced it's better than how I thought it was. And I would watch it again, especially for that soundtrack. It's so good.
Yeah, the music is great. And I thought all the kid actors were very, very good. Like the younger kids in the 1970 portion of the movie, I thought they were all very good. And
better than the adult actors, honestly, I thought.
In many cases, yeah, definitely. Some of their friends. I mean, I thought obviously Eunice was great. And then the famous gentleman who played Rubens, I thought they were both very good. But I liked the part where like kind of you were bored. I kind of enjoyed that kind of the mundane middle part of it, where they're just like they were just trying to figure out like what their lives were going to be. There was kind of like an everydayness to it, and I am one of those 5-star folks.
My reaction was, it's a 3.5-star movie. 4 stars for me is like I would rewatch this tomorrow. I'm not going to rewatch this tomorrow, but I could see myself watching it down the line.
Yeah, if you ever wanted to do some other like Walter Salles movies, I know like I've seen Central Station. I know he did the Motorcycle Diaries, was about Che Guevara. That I remember being pretty good. I haven't seen in a long time, but yeah, he's done some good stuff. Might be worth looking at some of his movies.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I wanted to, and then I was like, oh, I'll watch Lake Michigan Monster instead.
Is that how you said it to yourself too? When you said it out loud?
That's the only way I talk to myself. And now, granted, Central Station is under 2 hours, but like a lot of Walter Salles movies are pretty long. So I just, I had to do what I could with the time allotted to me.
Hey man, no judgment here.
So you mentioned Oscars. Fernando Torres got nominated. The movie got nominated. I don't think any of the other movies that we talked about today got nominated for anything.
They did not know. It was also nominated for and won the best international film. Well,
yeah, and
most we'd seen all the Oscar stuff. Like even you saw most of the Oscar stuff this year, and I couldn't pick the substance for you. So
right, well, you could. It would just have been really mean.
I don't want to do that to you. I think I've told you this. I think you can handle it. It's more silly than gross, but
yeah,
it's also not like so good that you have to drop everything and watch it.
Right. One of my sisters is really into horror, and I think she knows that I'm really not. And when I told her I didn't want to watch, she goes, "It's a cartoon."
She's right. Yeah, that's 100% right. It's so silly. I mean, there's a part, Megan was a little bit grossed out by the end, and then there's a perfect moment in it, and I think it's one of the funniest, it's extremely funny, one of the funniest things I saw in a movie last year, but, it doesn't save the rest of the movie.
But you didn't even like the movie that much, so you wouldn't have.
I gave it 3.5 stars. Like, I liked it. I thought it was cool. It falls a little bit into that, like, Hundreds of Beavers. Grant, that was like, okay, yeah, this is a really cool idea, but it's not like, it wasn't like, a lot of people with the substance were like, oh my God, it's the best movie of the year. It's perfect. It's 5 stars. I'm like, absolutely not. But there's some cool stuff in it, and I'm glad, they made it the way they did.
Well, we're starting to talk about other movies from 2024. Let's not talk about it for too long, because we've been going pretty long. So come back next week. We're going to do our reunion episode, but it's not a reunion for us because we never leave each other online. It's a reunion of the movies of Never Did It in 2024. We're going to rank both. We're going to do our top 20 movies of 2024 and our top 20 movies that we covered on Never Did It.